Hello, Space Cats! Now, I'll admit to having had a bit of a daft moment. Yes, I've been a plank. If you watched this video, at the end you'll see that I said, next week I will be painting boots with a cat stuffed in it. Only joking, it's Puss in Boots. But I later discovered I'd already done it, here. So, instead, I'm going to blow your mind with this. You know, I said it was autumn. Well, we are having a heat wave today as I record this. I hope by the time that you see this, normality will have resumed. I blame the government. Actually, that's something I usually say for something they are utterly not responsible for, like stubbing my toe on a chair leg. But I think the government and successive governments right across the world are at least partly responsible for the climate changing. I was at university 3 decades ago in the 1990s worrying about global warming and desperately trying to do my bit to recycle or walk somewhere rather than drive. The name might have changed. We're no longer talking about the hole in the ozone layer or global warming, but the problem is the same. Well, as this is supposed to be a chill out video, I shall leave it there and tell you all the good things that are going on. The leaves on the horse chestnut trees have taken on a beautiful orange hue and the conkers are getting big. I think it's going to be a good year for conkers and acorns. A common question is, what am I doing here? And I don't think they mean existentially. I'm just adding plain old water to the paper to wet it thoroughly before I add any pigment to it. And that way, particularly in very hot and dry weather, it gives the pigment a little bit of a vehicle to run about the paper on. I'm not sure if that really makes sense, but it kind of does in my head. Back to trees. Horse chestnuts have the most beautiful little flowers in April, and because they are one of the first trees to have leaves in the spring, they are one of the first to lose them in autumn. The flowers smell amazing, so if you get a chance to pass one next springtime, make sure you stick your nose in and have a big old sniff. Disclaimer: don't do this if you have a tree or pollen allergy or have not completed the tree flower sniffing training. Autumn is the time of year to do some foraging. If you're on private land, make sure you ask first. I got some big cooking apples from the place where my son and I volunteer, and they were just falling to the floor and rotting. The people were pleased for us to pick some off the tree and make use of them. You might be lucky enough to have a public orchard though. There is one on the island where I live, and there are apples and pears and different varieties of plums and probably lots of other things I haven't discovered yet. Oh, and blackberries of course. The materials that I'm using here are the same as that which I usually use. I mean, if it ain't broke, why fix it? So that's Winsor Newton watercolour paint, Rowney Watercolour paper, and my gosh darn it, wonderful Derwent Inktense pencils. I'll link all that below. I've started off doing a base layer of the watercolour paint, but I find that they are not as colourful as I'd like them to be, probably because I'm using the pans, the little dried pigment filled boxes in a tin, rather than the tubes of paint, which tend to be more colourful and more saturated. I also rather love the colours of this time of year. Keep your sparkles and your red and green of Christmas. It's the tones of autumn that I love. Russet, orange, red, yellows, ochre, sienna, madder brown, the umber twins, Van Dyke brown, gamboge, crimson and carmine, and gold. There is something very atmospheric about walking through a path laden with the leaves of autumn, especially when there's been a bit of rain and you get that smell too. And if someone's having a bonfire nearby, well, that's it. I'm away in fairyland. Autumn on the Isle of Wight is quite a long season. Really, things kick off in August, with the horse chestnuts starting to change colour. Conversely, the oak trees don't completely lose their leaves until the beginning of December. But if we have a big windy storm in October or November, that tends to speed things up. So, on to fox facts. I expect you know that a male is called a dog and a lady is called a vixen. But did you know the plural is a leash or a skulk of foxes? I guess they do skulk around, don't they? Just like cats, foxes can retract their claws, but they are part of the dog family and dogs can't do this. Foxes do a lot more climbing on fences and up through windows than your average Labrador, I suppose, so maybe retractable claws can be quite useful for foxes. According to the website Wild Things Food, researchers have found that foxes are the first animals in the world to use the Earth's magnetic fields to judge the distance and direction of their prey. They can use this to their advantage when hunting for small animals located in high grass. Vixens give birth in March or April, so if you want to see baby foxes, you'll need to wait until April or May before they start to emerge. When they are born, they are totally reliant on their mother because they are blind and unable to thermoregulate, a fancy term for keeping their temperature where it should be. So, mum stays with the cubs and dad goes to find food to bring back to her. Foxes have fantastic low frequency hearing, so they can hear a rodent digging underground. This is also very helpful when there is a thick layer of snow and most small mammals are hidden from sight. I'll admit there is a small chance of thick snow on the Isle of Wight, but never say never. That hearing superpower might come in handy one day, foxes of the Isle of Wight. I love this little fox guy, sitting on a stone and enjoying a bowl of heartwarming veggie soup. It really is a most pleasant way to spend an afternoon. To give the image an extra boost of colour and some texture, I'm going to use the Inktense pencils. You can use them like ordinary coloured pencils, but the amazing thing about these little guys happens when you add water to them. Dip your paintbrush in some clean water, dab it on kitchen paper, and then just start brushing. The water somehow activates the pigment, and like magic, the saturation becomes about 1,000,000%. I really haven't found a medium that excites me as much, not since Doris Stokes passed away. And my most excellent chum Zoe, who is Zoe Sadler on YouTube, because that's her name, I digress, she gave me a big set of Inktense pencils. I think it has every colour and I could not have been more excited, not even if I'd won a lifetime supply of custard creams. Previously I had bought some individual colours and I must say they are not cheap, but my goodness they are blooming great to use and well worth spending £4 on a pencil. Here we go with the paintbrush. You'll see I've got a piece of tissue paper next to the painting and out of view I've got a clean jar of water. So every time I go to a different colour or to a different part of the image, I'm dipping my paintbrush back in my clean water and giving it a good rinse through. Then I dab it onto the tissue paper so that it's not going to have a big drip of water coming off of it. And then I'm just blending those colours, and you can see as soon as you put water on them they zing into life like an amazing zingy lemon. I think those zing, don't they? Oh look, I've done a little splotch of water. That's why it's really important for you to dab your brush, but make sure you've got a clean piece of kitchen paper or tissue paper so that as soon as you've done a splot of water like that, you can pick it back up. And even if you've got a little bit of pigment on it, if you do it straight away, you can rescue the situation. A lot of these you'll see when I've coloured in with the pencils originally, I've put a couple of colours down on that single piece, and that's why you can get that gradation of colours. You can even use the pencils on wet paper, although I'm not doing that here, that is completely dry. But if you do, what will happen is you'll leave a big smear of the pigment behind on the paper. So that might be exactly what you need to do. You need to just have a little bit of a play around and see how you like to use them. I've even dipped the pencils into water and then put them straight onto the paper, and then that way you've got much less control over details but a really good splodge of very saturated colour. I really like his ochre coloured stripy scarf. I wish I could find one just like it. Maybe I'll have to crochet one. If you have a little time today, why not find something to draw or paint with and on, and just create something that gives you the feeling of the coming autumn. Here's the finished piece. We all need a bit of cosy in our lives right now, and it's the perfect time of year to put away all your summer dresses, boys, that includes you too, and whip out your winter woolies. Embrace autumn, it's wonderful! Next week I will be looking at harvest time. Yes, I will continue to get all pumpkin-tastic and feel the vibes of autumn. Until then, I'm off to eat an anteater. I will see you next week. No.